Welcome, welcome.
Hello!
Another edition of Resistance Reads. I'm Michael Kilman.
I'm Matt Wellstrom.
And today we covered Paradise Lost. We were kind of excited because we thought we had the exact same copy.
Yeah.
But we noticed there was one little difference here. You can't see it, I guess, if you're listening to audio. The text of Milton's name is orange on mine and white on Matt's.
Yeah, mine has a little orange line in between Milton and the title of his book.
Yeah, and I think they're... God, what year is yours? Mine's 2000.
Yours was printed in 2000. Mine is 2009.
Okay, so yours is newer.
Yep.
I wonder how different our footnotes are, or all of our notes are.
Probably medium.
Probably medium, yeah. So Paradise Lost, the classic story of the fall from grace from humanity.
Yep.
But largely from Satan's point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like Satan is definitely the protagonist in this book. You were saying that your high school English teacher said that he was the hero of the story.
Yeah.
And I think he might have just been thinking he is like the romantic protagonist of it.
Okay, yeah.
The
tragic hero.
The tragic hero. He's the hero in the same way that like Prometheus is the hero of Prometheus Bound. You know?
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But in part we read this because, Mary Shelley loved Paradise Lost.
Oh, I can see the parallels. Oh my God. There's so many of them.
So many.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, she's definitely drawing on Milton.
Well, yeah. I mean, God's whole, dickish relationship with Adam, feels very similar to Frankenstein's relationship with his monster. He's like, hi, I'm going to make you, and you're just going to be all by yourself. And don't worry about it. You can talk to the animals. You can talk to... Look at all these great animals I made in this garden for you to talk to.
Yeah, but the creature doesn't get to name all the animals.
Oh, I know. No, the creature has it worse.
And he doesn't get his Eve.
He doesn't get his Eve.
That's
very important.
So
yeah, Frankenstein is a bigger dick than God. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. We'll see.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Milton's so just go ahead and read his.
Yeah. Okay, so John Milton was born in 1608. He was the son of a scrivener, like Bartleby, a notary, and a moneylender. He was educated by private tutors and attended St. Paul's School and Christ College, Cambridge. He left Cambridge in 1632 and spent the next 6 years in scholarly retirement. God.
Wow, nice.
I would give an arm to spend 6 years in scholarly retirement.
Me too. Maybe a leg as well.
Oh yeah, right. Like below the knee for sure.
Below the knee.
Yeah. Amask and Lacadius belonged to this period. Following his Italian journey in 1838 and 9, he took up the cause of Presbyterianism in a series of hard-hitting anti-prelatical pamphlets that he wrote in 1641 and 42. His divorce pamphlets in 1643 through 5, written after his first wife had temporarily deserted him, earned him much notoriety and contributed to his breach with the Presbyterians. In 1649, he took up the cause of the new Commonwealth. As Secretary for Foreign Tongues to the Council of State, he defended the English Revolution, both in English and in Latin. Nice, doing double duty there. And sacrificed his eyesight in the process. That's right, he was blind.
Mm-hmm. He was blind when he finished this.
Mm-hmm.
It was dictation largely at the end.
That's crazy. You know what? I think that tracks a little bit. He risked his life by publishing The Ready and Easy Way to Establish a Free Commonwealth on the eve of the Restoration in 1660. His great poems were published after his political defeat. A 10-book version of Paradise Lost appeared in 1667, and Paradise Regained and Samson Agonistes were published together in 1671. I guarantee you I did not pronounce Agonistes correctly. An expanded version of his shorter poems, first published in 1646, was brought out in 1673, and the 12-book Paradise Lost appeared in 1674, the year of his death.
Yeah, I also read. There's the divorce thing was actually really funny reading in the introduction here. That basically, so he marries he's in his mid-30s and he marries a woman who is half his age. I looked up and that meant 15.
Ooh,
so he marries a 15-year-old girl and they hate each other.
Well, yeah,
absolutely hate each other.
Can you imagine having to hang out with a 15-year-old that you're not that you haven't sired? You know,
I know.
at your age now,
Yeah.
like, what would that be like?
It would be a nightmare.
It would be a fucking nightmare.
I don't know why anyone would want that.
No, I don't get it either. That's wild to me.
So they hated each other so much that he wrote 4 pamphlets of divorce in favor of divorce and sent them out. And then they replied. They finally replied after the 4th pamphlet, basically. Not to him directly, but establishing kind of like rules for censorship about what you can and can't talk about in political pamphlets. So he actually like pissed them off so much about the whole divorce question that they're like, all right,
the Presbyterian Church is like, yo, you gotta stop.
You gotta stop.
You gotta stop.
Right. So it was pretty funny. It is notable that he was the pamphleteer in the middle of a Civil War conflict in England between the monarch, the king, and I forget which king, and then one of
the English kings,
one of the many English kings, and then
probably a George. It was a George. We know that for sure.
That's very likely.
Yeah.
There were many Georges.
Well, they were all successive too at that point, as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
So he was also very critical of the parliament when they refused to execute the king, which is what like ended up getting the king back in power in the long run.
Hey, I feel the same way about the Congress and the fact that they didn't try Trump for his crimes right after he left office.
Yeah,
man.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he was a very politically well-written pamphleteer.
Okay.
Many pamphlets. But like he apparently started like thinking about writing some great epic in the vein of Homer or the Greek tragedies. Beginning in his teenage years, he started talking about it.
Wow.
And it took him all the way until middle age till he really started kind of like, I guess, penning Paradise Lost. And according to the introduction in this, he like was not. We're not exactly sure how long he was working on. He claims that he was working on it for like 10 or 15 years, but there was like some scraps of parchment that they found that likely indicated he had been working on it for much longer.
Interesting.
So,
you know what? It is such an impressive feat of writing.
It is.
That I'm not surprised he wanted to condense the time period a little bit, because that would make it seem even more impressive.
That's true.
When I was reading this, I was as impressed in sections, especially early on. I was as impressed with his use of language as I would be in like a lot of the better Shakespeare plays. You know, like his turns of phrase. Like I love the little thing he has about rhyming at the beginning of it, and then he does put rhymes in at certain points to like really like
hammer in a point.
Yeah, exactly.
Skillful.
Very skillfully done.
It's honestly one of the most beautiful and incredible poems I've ever read.
Yeah, same. Absolutely.
I don't remember appreciating it that much as a 16-year-old. But,
well,
you know, I had not read that much at that point.
That's the thing about handing great works to teenagers, like to high schoolers especially. And we've talked about this a couple different times.
Yeah,
but
like with 1984.
With 1984, but I think like. I'm having this like tension in my brain about like what kind of stuff should we give teenagers to read, because they do like literacy and like being exposed to great works in a setting where someone can explain those works to you for free is so valuable, and I feel like I got so much out of it. But like most of the things that I loved reading when I was in high school, I've gone back and read them and I'm like, those were fine. You know, like Salinger, he's good. You know, I'm not going to put him on the top of my list.
I read Catcher in the Rye recently with my high schooler, with my oldest son.
What did you think of it?
I didn't think it was that good.
It's fine, right?
It's
like,
okay.
Like, I think most of his other books are better than Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah.
I think the reason they want us to read Catcher in the Rye in high school is because it's about a high schooler who's having like a nervous breakdown.
And an existential crisis.
An existential crisis, yeah. So, like, I guess I get why they do that, but like having high schoolers read Romeo and Juliet doesn't make any sense, because they're going to be like, why? They're like, it's so romantic. They're not going to get that like these kids are like making terrible choices based on their hormones and that their parents are the cause of all of their strife.
Well, and I actually remember in freshman year reading Romeo and Juliet, and like she asked us, my language art teacher asked us, what does this all mean? What's the core message Shakespeare's trying to give you? And some girl raises her hand and inevitably says that love overcomes everything. And she looks her dead in the eye and she goes, wrong. That's the wrong message to take away from
Absolutely. Like Romeo is horny, Juliet's besotted, and they just make bad choices because of that.
Right. And that's basically what she told us. She's like, when you are older, you will understand how dangerous and wild love can get.
Absolutely.
Right? How the passions inflame things that never needed to be inflamed in the first place.
Truly, the moral of Romeo and Juliet is that passions can destroy. The passions of their parents for vengeance, and the passions of themselves for each other end up causing so much death. Mercutio dies, Tybalt dies, they both die. It's sad.
Yeah.
But it's also a very dramatic and entertaining tale.
It is.
And I think both of those things are lost on high schoolers when they read them.
Yeah.
More often than not, right?
But at the same time, I really do feel in this class, I got a British literature class. We read Beowulf, Canterbury Tales, Paradise Lost, sections of La Morte d'Arthur, and then I can't remember which Shakespeare. It might have been Hamlet. But that was what we did. We just read, and we would read passages together. We'd have our assignments, then we'd get tested on it, an essay test, which is my favorite kind of test.
Oh, absolutely.
But anyway, and one more thing I wanted to mention about Paradise Lost, and specifically about Milton, is that Milton, like Shakespeare, coined a whole bunch of new terminology and phrases that had not ever been written down. Now, I always critique that kind of claim about Shakespeare inventing 1,000 words because, we don't know what the common parlance of it. He might have just been regurgitating slang.
Oh, absolutely. He's probably like Amy Heckerling writing Clueless and just interviewing teenagers for what do you guys say? What's a good rhyme, guys? What's a good rhyme for this and for me to insert in here?
Right, in the 1990s. So I don't necessarily buy... I do buy that, of course, authors make up words, but the claims that, Shakespeare invented, thousands of words, and, I mean, come on, some of them are, untrue. It's you just added the prefix un.
Absolutely. No, they're always giving him credit
That's not a distinct word.
Yeah, they're giving him credit for, creating words, but what he's really doing is recording words.
Right. And that's important too.
And that's absolutely important work. I'm not gonna, come for the German brothers who recorded all those fairy tales. The Grimm's brothers. And say you guys didn't invent these stories, because I don't think Shakespeare's claiming to have invented those words. That's just a thing that listicles like to say check out these 100 words that Shakespeare created.
Right.
But
I'm sure there were some.
Probably. Yeah.
I mean he
has an amazing
an incredible
facility with language.
Yeah.
And so does Milton. Absolutely.
Right. And Milton is I think Milton's on par with Shakespeare, with the difference being that, Milton really poured all of his creative genius into one. And now he wrote other things, but his true genius is in Paradise Lost.
Yeah.
Whereas Shakespeare has a dozen genius plays.
No, I would give him at least 30.
At least, yeah. So
he's got 42 something like that credited plays, and 30 of them are fucking bangers, man.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
The Henriad, oh my God, come on! It's good.
I have not read all of. I've probably read about a quarter of Shakespeare's plays or seen them performed.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, I feel like that's
during COVID. When I actually had COVID and I thought I was on death's door, I was like, let's go out with some Shakespeare.
Yo, that's how you do it.
So it's Hamlet and Macbeth and
dude, getting the Richards and Henrys oh, they're so good.
I did the Patrick Stewart Macbeth. Oh, it was so good. Anyway, we're getting a little off here.
One thing though, actually, I saw Richard II performed in Boulder last year, and it was literally Trump's presidency. It was so crazy.
Oh,
yeah.
Anyway, okay, so let's get into the synopsis here for Paradise Lost, and what's really convenient about the synopsis is that he provides you the argument in the beginning of every
He synopsizes every chapter.
He gives you a
at
summary.
the beginning of the chapter.
Now,
it's fucking brilliant.
It's brilliant because it gives you a chance to just relax and enjoy the poetry and the musical nature of it. And of course, like any good synopsis, it's not getting too detailed.
No.
There's plenty of really interesting things that go on.
It's
as
a skeletal outline of it, but I mean, like the Folger editions of Shakespeare do the same thing at the beginning of every scene, and that's like when I was a teenager. That's how I just did. That's what I did. I did what you said. I was like, oh, this is what it's about. Now I can like not worry about following the plot and really enjoy like what the characters are saying and like the poetry of it.
Yeah, and like you were saying in one of your messages to me earlier, like this is definitely one of those books that you can absolutely spend an entire academic career doing nothing but studying it line by line.
Oh my God.
It is the amount of references too. I realize that like in partly doing resistance reads with you that like I've learned more contextual information that helped me better understand Milton.
That's fucking crazy.
Like it's crazy like how well read you have to be to understand some of these passages, which is why the argument is super helpful.
Yeah.
So the modern version is broken down into 12 books. Apparently that was like a scholarly approach somewhere in the 20th century that decide.
Well, no, didn't they say that they printed the 12? It was published as 12 books right after his death.
Oh, that's right.
1674.
Right. So originally the first version was 10 books. This one's 12. But honestly, you can see where 2 books get absorbed because 2 of his there's like 2 passages of books where you're like, oh, and now we're gonna finish telling the tale.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You're right. That's right. One of the Raphael sections is like that.
Right, and also the when Michael comes down at the end, and is like explaining the future to Adam. So book 1, Satan revolts in heaven, drawing 1/3 of God's angels to his cause. They lose and are cast down into chaos and end up waking in the edge of the lake of fire. Satan then wakes his army. There's a kind of calling out of important names. He kind of goes through the whole who's who of the most important now demons, because they're angels before, now they're demons. And then Satan is hopeful that heaven can be regained still, but tells his legion that he has heard legend of or prophecy of a new world and a new kind of creature that is soon to be created or already created. I was a little unclear on that point.
I think he is too.
And I think he is, yeah, like you're right. So he decides to call a full council to decide what is to be done and creates the Pandemonium Fortress, which, like, if you play the Diablo series...
Oh, I should do that.
That's where Diablo is headquartered, the Pandemonium Fortress.
Okay, cool.
So,
nice.
Book 2. The Council of the Damned meet, and they discuss what's to be done. Moloch is kind of like the war leader. He wants to take the fight back to heaven and try to conquer it again. Belial, also a character in Diablo, he's the Lord of Lies in Diablo, counters what he says, and that it would be pointless, for what kind of victory could they possibly have against the power of God, and that they're much more likely to be even further punished. Then there's a third proposition by Satan himself.
I thought it was Beelzebub.
Yeah, but isn't Beelzebub's name Satan?
No, Beelzebub is...
Is he a separate...
Beelzebub's definitely a different guy, and he's the one who's like, we should sneak in and turn them. Okay. And then Satan's like, okay, who's gonna do it? None of you fuckers. It's gonna be me.
Yeah, that's right. And I think I'm confused because I have seen throughout my own culture that Beelzebub and Satan are intermixed.
Oh, they definitely
are. They've been mixed up.
Yeah,
right?
They've been conflated, I guess.
So I think that was my confusion.
Yeah.
But the third proposition is to seek vengeance by visiting the other new world and corrupting God's creation.
Yeah.
And he's like, who's going to do this? And Satan, as you say, volunteers himself. He then heads down to the gates of hell, where he's not sure he can get out, but to his surprise, he finds 2 creatures who identify themselves as sin and death. He's ready to, throw down with death in particular, because death is, this big, terrible creature. And then sin is like, wait, that's your kid.
Yeah, we're your children.
Sin is like his... It's kind of like an Athena moment, is from what I understood.
Yeah, she's like, I emerged
she sprouts from his head, right?
Yeah.
So, but then, then there's, some sort of,
Although I think Zeus would say that, Athena is his child as well.
Right. So it's kind of like his child / lover almost, because in a weird way she's like born. It's almost like a reflection of, I guess, Jesus. She's kind of like born pregnant with death.
Or it's kind of like a reflection of Adam and Eve. You know, she's part of him and then his wife as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, but Satan is like, all right, you're my kids / weird sort of incestuous situation.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you let me pass, and Sin also, by the way, says, oh yeah, by the way, God gave me the key to the gates of hell. For some reason, apparently. Which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
And so Satan's like, well, guess what? I'm going to go corrupt this other world where you guys can like reign. Sin and death, we can unleash you if we do this job, right? Mm-hmm. So they're like, cool, let's do that. Then it goes to book 3, and God's like, yeah, I see what you're doing down there, Satan. And he's like watching from on high, and he's talking to his son, which they don't directly name Jesus, but is obviously Jesus.
Yeah, he's the Jesus.
He's the Jesus. Don't mess with the Jesus.
Don't mess with the Jesus.
He taught, like, in this discussion with his son, he says, man is going to fall. It's inevitable. But because Satan's going to get in there and corrupt them. I know it's going to happen, but I'm going to allow it to happen. But Satan will get no grace. But man, he'll have a chance to, like, redeem himself. So no worries. But I need a redeemer. And then the Son of God volunteers to be the redeemer through all the trials, tribulations, torture, resurrection, crucifixion, all that stuff, right? Meanwhile, Satan's kind of like hanging around on the edge of heaven, like at the edge of what they call the orb of heaven or whatever.
Yep. Creeping.
And he's creeping around. He pretends to be kind of like a different angel, and he walks up to Uriel and he's like, hey, Uriel, tell me about this new world that God has created. I want to know more. Mm-hmm. And Uriel points the way, says, hey, this is where it's at. Go check it out if you want. But Uriel's not stupid. He's kind of suspicious as to what's going on.
Yeah.
Book 4, Satan arrives on the edge of Eden and falls into doubt as to what he should do. He's like, should I have vengeance? Should I do all this stuff? Should I be a corrupter? Ultimately, he decides that he is in fact justified and evil and that vengeance must be done. He sees Adam and Eve drops on them and learns of the tree of knowledge that Adam and Eve are forbidden to touch and eat. Meanwhile, Uriel reports to the angel Gabriel that an evil spirit may likely be headed to Earth, and so Gabriel dispatches a watch. Satan is found whispering in Eve's ear that very night to corrupt, and is corrupting her dreams, and then Gabriel pulls him and is ready to fight him, but then a sign from heaven makes Gabriel leave.
Yeah.
For no apparent reason.
Yeah.
And so Gabriel lets Satan go. And then, book 5, Eve tells Adam of her nightmares. Adam comforts her. They head out to work for the day. And at one point, the Archangel Raphael arrives with a message from God that Satan is around and means them harm, and they are absolutely not to trust anything he says. Book 6, Adam then questions Raphael the details about the civil war in heaven and who this Satan person is.
It's a pretty sick chapter.
It's actually, I think, one of the coolest chapters.
Fully.
It's like the flashback to the civil war of heaven, which is like, so far as I can tell, no one has ever really done. There's mentions of that in other literature.
Yeah,
but it's never fully narrated. Mm-hmm. So Michael and Gabriel lead battle against Satan in the 1/3 of angels that he has under his command. Satan attacks the first time. They're pretty unsuccessful. They just get kind of beaten back. But the next day they show up with all these terrible demonic siege engines. Mm-hmm. And they almost destroy Michael and Gabriel. But unfortunately, the siege engines, they had to chase them up this mountain, and Satan and his army are tired, and the siege engines can't quite make it up the mountain. So they lose. And then on the 3rd day of battle, God is like, Jesus, go get him. And Jesus...
so that is what happened.
Yep, and Jesus goes and gets them, and backs Satan and his army into a corner against the wall of heaven, and he just like opens up the ground before him and drops him into the abyss in the lake of fire. And then that's kind of like gets us back to the beginning. Book 7 is just a retelling of the creation story from the book of Genesis that's just like much expanded. And it is like worth reading just for the beautiful poetry of the whole thing. It's very nice,
but it was definitely the most boring chapter.
It was boring because I grew up Catholic and had like read the story many times.
Yeah, I grew up like kind of non-denominational, almost atheistic, and I'm still like, I'm very familiar with all of this shit.
I just think that like, you know, up until recently, it's kind of like a normal thing that most Americans get in their upbringing diet. Less so in the past 10, 15 years, but it definitely... Like, I was explaining this a little bit about what I was reading to my 12-year-old, and he's like, what's all this? And I was like, I guess I really have not... really not gone that too far into details. Like, he knew the basic outline, but I kind of gave him a whole rundown of Paradise Lost. Book 8, Adam asks how the universe works. And Raphael is like, dude, you're not going to understand. He's like, you're better off asking questions you might actually understand. And Adam's like, well, okay. And so then Adam recalls what it was like to be created, waking up for the first time. And then he talks about like how he was alone and he had only the beasts for company. And he then like apologizes to God. He's like, God, I'm really super lonely. Will you please make me a companion?
And God is like, bro, you think I'm not lonely? There's no one like me.
Yeah.
If it's good enough for me, it's good enough for you, right?
Right.
And he's like, nah, I'll make you a wife.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
cool.
So then he does like divine surgery.
Yeah.
And Adam is like actually pretty gruesome. He's like, Adam's like, I remember my chest being opened and my rib being torn out.
The closest one to my heart. Yeah.
The closest one to my heart. And then he's like, but it was instantly healed.
Yeah.
And then, so he recounts the creation of Eve, and it talks about how beautiful Eve is, how she's the perfect companion for him. And then Raphael, like, is clearly, like, trying to get away, and it's like, I'm leaving, Adam. You know, I heard enough. And then, book 9, Satan returns the next day to corrupt Eve. He turns into a kind of mist and enters inside of a snake and waits for Adam and Eve to divide their chores and split up.
And at this point, Eve is like, I can like do my own thing, right? Like we can go do separate activities and that's cool. And Adam's like, I guess so.
Yeah, like,
I'm gonna be so sad while you're gone though.
Yeah.
And she's like, but I am my own person though, right?
Yeah. It's actually really interesting. It's like the one time that Adam like lets slip his control of Eve is that's obviously like some sort of implicit patriarchal message here.
Yup.
That, you know, that like,
don't do it.
Don't let your
wife
woman alone.
away, you know. She's gonna go find a snake and get corrupted.
That's right.
It's not a metaphor. Don't worry about it.
So you know, she's sitting there doing her chores, and all of a sudden, a snake pops up, and a snake's like talking to her, and she's like, how did a beast of the land learn the power of speech? And Satan, in the form of the snake, is like, no, it's I earned the power by eating the fruit of a very specific tree. And Eve is like, what tree is that?
Yeah.
Because obviously she's curious, like all of a sudden the beasts are getting power. Are there going to be other beasts that are getting power?
Yeah.
Like what's the deal here?
Yeah.
So Satan leads her to the tree, and of course it's the one tree they're not supposed to touch or eat. The tree of knowledge, right?
Of good and evil.
Yeah. Which I have thoughts about that. We're almost there.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I can't eat of this. And he's like, his basic argument is like, look, this tree gave me the power of speech. What do you think it could do for you?
Yeah, girl, you're the empress of the earth.
That's right.
You're the most sexy, beautiful, cool chick around.
I kind of got the
imagine?
idea. Yeah, and I kind of got the idea that Satan was like semi like love at first sight.
Well, Satan was definitely envious of Adam.
He's definitely.
Absolutely. I think that's explicitly stated in here. But also, like, no, he's laying it on real thick.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. At
Doing
first,
a good job.
At first, he's almost like, should I even corrupt this hottie?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, do I want to do that? Like, come on.
Like, look how perfect
She
and
gets
innocent
more
she
clothes
is.
on if she gets corrupted. It's just going to be all bashful. If you're such a babe.
That's right. So, of course, Eve eats the fruit. And then she's actually like, of course, flooded with all the knowledge of good and evil and free will and all that stuff. And then she's like, wait, should I even tell Adam?
Yeah, I like that part.
At first, she's like, should I even tell him? And then ultimately she decides, he is kind of my husband. I probably should tell him.
You know what? Like, where I go, he goes. You know, same, like, flip it.
That's right. And I actually really liked, I liked his approach or interpretation to Adam, because a lot of the other approaches were like, Adam's just an idiot, and is just Eve just like, here, eat this, dumbass.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And
I feel like he does a really good job of, like, making these two characters not just, like, moral, lessons.
Right. Right. He actually really does bring them to life and makes them dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam is like, I should not eat that thing. But then he really thinks about it, and he's like, well, Eve's going to die.
Yeah.
And I rather would be dead than to lose the woman I love.
And he literally is like, God will make me another Eve, and I don't want to do that.
Right.
Like, I don't want to fuck with that at all.
Right, exactly.
I love her too much.
Although, Lilith, but that's not actually a canonical story.
Oh, is that apocryphal?
It is apocryphal.
Oh,
It's a 11th century was the first time it was written down. It's almost certainly much older than that. But I think it's 11th century a Jewish midrash.
Okay.
So it's like the stories behind the stories to explain the contradictions in the Torah, written by Jewish mystics.
Okay, fanfic. Cool.
So it's Bible fanfic.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think I might be incorrect about this, but I'm pretty sure it was Kabbalists.
Okay.
So real like Jewish mystics.
Oh wow, yeah.
So, which if you guys don't know what the story of Lilith is, she's like the first wife of Adam, and literally this is the story, not just making this up. They had an argument about who gets to be on top during sex, and God complains to Adam, and Adam is like, Adam complains to God, not God complains to Adam. Adam complains to God that he doesn't get to be dominant during sex, and God goes to Lilith, and he's like, just quit. I don't want to hear Adam's whining. Just let him be on top. And Lilith is like, no, I'm not going to do that. Fuck you, God. And God goes, no. Fuck you, Lilith. And she becomes the queen of the succubuses.
Okay.
Like that's
so,
the
yeah.
that's the and
she
that's
shows
why,
up in a lot of horror stuff. So I was wondering about that.
Also
okay.
in Diablo.
Sure, of
But
course.
very different framework.
Chilling Adventures of Sabrina as well.
But that's the original midrash from like a summary of it from like the 11th century.
Okay.
So I got really into Jewish mysticism for a little bit. It was,
Hey man, so did everybody else. Madonna was right there with you.
Yeah, but I was like 20 and didn't really know what I was reading, and realized I didn't understand half of what the Zohar, which is like this massive 10-volume series of Jewish mystic tomes. I have one, and I got halfway through it. I was like, I don't understand what this is. I don't know enough about the Torah. Okay, so God knows what's up, and he says the angels are begging his forgiveness, and he says, you know what, angels, no problem, not a big deal. You couldn't have stopped Satan from getting in anyway, because like on the down low,
set it up.
he literally sets it up,
Yeah.
right? And he has foreknowledge of it, so he could like have put a stop to it at any point.
Yeah.
And God sends his son down to Adam and Eve for the punishment. But his son, Jesus, promises that in the end they'll get the better of Satan. They'll get their vengeance. Meanwhile, Satan leads sin and death to earth, where they can now thrive. And Satan goes back to pandemonium after kind of unleashing sin and death on the world. And calls a full assembly where he's announcing his triumph of the corruption. And they're like, instead of the cheers, all of a sudden it's a chorus of hisses, and all of them become snakes.
Yep.
I
think that's where they become demons, really.
Yeah. I was struggling with that. I had to read that passage a couple of times. I'm like, are they permanently snakes, or are they like because it's like during a certain season they must remember their snakehood or something.
Right, and there's also lines throughout where like all of the anybody who was what is it, the seraphim or something like that. They can shapeshift at will.
Mm-hmm.
So like it felt like God and or Jesus, I guess they're kind of the same, but they are distinctly different characters in this book.
The Trinity's always confusing.
It's so stupid. They are like punishing them, so they make them transform into snakes. But then like I'm sure Satan's not a snake forever because like he shows up and does different things throughout like the Bible, right? Am I wrong about that? Is Satan a character in the Bible?
It's complicated until there's. I mean,
he's not. Is he in the Old Testament?
Ha-Satan is just the Hebrew word for the adversary,
right? Or the
and
enemy,
the first time you see that is in the book where Job is being tempted. Like it's a contest between God and the adversary. They have a bet on whether or not Job's faith will crumble if God just miserably treats him and like shit and punishes him, and just visits disaster after disaster upon Job.
Yeah,
and of course, like God, the whole point is that like Job remains faithful through the whole thing, despite like his family being wiped out and his I forget all the things.
I think he gets like diseases.
It's like terrible. Yeah. It's like literally Job has the worst luck you can imagine.
He finishes building a house and then God drops like a rock on
right, all kinds of stuff, right? So that's like the first mention of the adversary, and there's a lot of contesting scholarship about this whole thing. I'm not a biblical scholar. My secondary degree in undergraduate was religious studies, so I thoroughly read through the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, all those things, and analyzed them, and just, also a lifetime growing up Catholic, I read a lot of that stuff. But I'm not a scholar or an expert. But then there's other moments in the Bible, like when Jesus is out in the desert for 40 days. There's the tempter, which could be attributed as Satan. But in a lot of ways, like, I don't think you really, and then also there's like the argument, there's a scholarly argument that the whole concept of God and the devil come actually from Zoroastrianism.
I have heard that,
right?
Yes.
And so is the Persian. So it's like the afterlife doesn't exist in Judaism until they get to Egypt. The pork taboo doesn't exist till after they're in Babylon because the main staple of Babylon is pork. And then when they're basically like oppressed by Persia, then that's where you get the concepts of the god of light and the god of darkness kind of injecting its way into Jewish tradition. Yeah, okay. So it's really interesting actually to go back and read the historical influences of the various elements of the Torah, and then also to remember that Christianity is one of many radical sects of Judaism that comes about as a kind of Reformation movement or a revival movement during Roman oppression, which was very bad. Like people do not understand how horrible the Romans were to the Jews. Like they really were one of the worst groups. It was, and the time in which Jesus arrives is one of the most turbulent times in Jewish history. And so there's many messiahs and saviors that pop up, a number of different cult groups.
There's a really good documentary about this called The Life of Brian. It's a messiah in every corner.
I'm not the Messiah. Only one so humble as to claim that they are not the Messiah must be the Messiah.
Exactly.
Oh, fine then. I am the Messiah. He admitted it. Yeah. So Monty Python. Actually, that's a really interesting case because Monty Python actually the Life of Brian was heavily protested.
Oh, absolutely.
And like theaters and stuff. But really they were just saying like, look, during this time there was a lot of people who claimed to be the Messiah and the Savior. That's just what happens during turbulent times. I could give you guys like a whole rundown of like the anthropological view of what happens when there's a lot of psychosocial stress and why new religions form and all that stuff. But like, let me finish.
Sure, the summary. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Those are like interesting questions to talk about. So Satan leads sin and death, goes back to pandemonium. Everyone's turned to snakes. Then it flashes back over to Adam. Adam's like really pissed at Eve. Like furious.
Well, they're like Eve. Snipping at each other too.
Yeah.
She's like,
They are.
Yeah.
But he is like, I mean, it is just like very patriarchal kind of like it's the woman's fault kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And she says basically like, you know what? We're gonna why is death not coming? Let's just die. Let's kill ourselves.
Mhm.
And Adam is like, well, maybe we shouldn't kill ourselves because remember what Jesus said. Jesus said that we will have revenge on Satan one day, so maybe it's worth living. And then in book 11, Jesus presents the prayer. They basically pray to God for forgiveness at the end of book 10. And then the Son of God presents the prayers of Adam and Eve, and God accepts them, but says they can't remain in Eden. They have to go out into the rest of the world. So he sends Michael to kick them out. But before Michael does, Michael begins to tell Adam what the future holds for the human race. And like the end of the book 11 ends with like him summarizing everything up to the great flood with Noah.
Right.
And then book 12, and this is like one of those times when it's like clearly they didn't have to split this book. But Michael continues to tell Adam what the future holds for humans. He retells all the biblical narratives that lead up to the death and resurrection of Jesus, and then the second coming of Jesus and the ultimate destruction of Satan and his kind. Adam is like filled with hope of this idea, knowing that him and Eve will one day see the future for this eventual conquest of Satan. They're then kicked out of paradise with the flaming sword, which is like a big comet, and then closes paradise to humanity until the second coming of Jesus,
Right.
which is like the book of Revelations,
Mhm.
which is interestingly, if you want to take a scholarly approach of this and not like a faith-based approach, is really about the fall of Rome. It's like it's a record of like a poetic and very artistic rendering of the fall of Rome.
Interesting.
Which actually, if you read it that way, it's actually a really beautiful text, and it doesn't seem like someone just took a bunch of mushrooms and like started talking about the apocalypse.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
But yeah. What are your thoughts?
I liked it. I thought it was really good. As we discussed before, the language is beautiful. I think that Milton does a really good job of, like providing motivations and character to all like the three protagonists, if you will, like Satan and Adam and Eve. Eve is given, I think, a much kinder treatment in this than she is given in almost every other version of the Eden story that I've ever read. And
she's not like a temptress. She's like she's sincerely curious.
She's a person put in a situation where she is told by several people, God, Jesus, Adam, probably Raphael and Michael too, like, hey, there's this tree over here which has knowledge in it. Don't look at it. Don't touch it. Don't do anything to it. You have free will, but as it's malleable, you know, like we're gonna manipulate it a little bit. All you have to do is just love God of your own volition, not because we told you, of your own volition. Feel it in your heart. Feel it deep in your heart.
Love me, damn it.
And everything will be great. And it'll be super cool and chill forever. And then the snake comes along and he's like, yeah, man, I got like leveled up because I ate this fruit over here and nothing bad happened to me. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to check that out. You know, it makes sense. That's what I would do in that situation. What's the point of free will if it's not free? You know?
Well, I also think that the real punishment for Adam and Eve is just a world of change.
Yeah, right.
Like that's the punishment, is that suddenly you have to live not in paradise where everything, honestly, paradise sounds fucking boring.
Dude, because they have to they get to live in this beautiful garden, but they also have to tend it every day.
Like all they get to do is tend a garden. You don't get to do anything else.
They don't have books or, you know.
I'm not entirely sure if they even have sex.
I think they have very chaste sex. That's what it seemed like.
Oh,
because as soon as they eat the apples,
give me Lilith.
Fuck, man. They go
they're rabbits. They're rabbits.
On each other.
Yeah.
You know, they're filled with lust for each other, which is like, I don't know, man. If I'm in a marriage where like it's just very cute and nice And I'm like, oh, she's so pretty. But then all we do is like cuddle.
It's like a museum.
That sounds like it would suck. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like you're preserving the thing
Yeah.
to make sure it stays beautiful, but you're not really like living with the thing.
Yep.
And you're
absolutely.
also treating the person like a thing in a way. Because...
Oh, Eve is definitely treated like a possession throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And when she's telling Adam off, and she's like, if you were over there and that snake came up to you, you would have done the same fucking thing as I did. No fucking doubt.
Yeah.
You know, she's right.
Yeah.
Adam's not that smart.
No. Not.
And he's super credulous, and he's just like, oh my god, I have a couple things I wrote down. I'm just like, yeah, language is gorgeous. Jehovah sent Raphael to warn Adam of Lucifer's machinations, so Adam would have his own free will, his will though free yet mutable. I was like, that's not free will, bro.
I actually strongly argue that this book is really an argument for why humans do not have free will, according to this mythos.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly right. Beware willfully transgressing God's will, and then pretend surprisal and unadmonished, and be unadmonished and unforewarned. So God is like, hey, like, Angel, go down and warn Adam that Satan is around, because if he does eat that apple, I don't want him to have plausible deniability. And I'm like, bro, this is all your plan. This is like, what kind of sacrifice does Jesus make if you send him down there knowing that he's going to get crucified, then you tell him he's going to get crucified and that his friend's going to betray him, and then the friend betrays him? What's the friend that betrays him? What's his name? Judas. Is Judas even a fucking betrayer? You programmed bro to do that thing. Mm-hmm. That's some bullshit, man. Judas is a fucking...
He's a pawn.
God, you are the betrayer.
But I see that's the same thing with Satan. Is Satan really a rebel, or is Satan the inevitable machinations of God?
I think Satan is actually acting on his own free will, because he did betray God. He was like... Because God promoted his son over him. So, like, God did some nepotism. Mm-hmm. He's like, I love praise. As God, as this guy who's created this seraphim, you know, like, I love it when they praise me, but I would like twice as much praise, actually. So I'm going to create a son who I'm going to put second in command, and I want you guys to praise him as well. That's in this book. He's like, praise my son. He's that dope. Mm-hmm. And that, like, just as we all know from showbiz parents, any praise that the children get, that's just praise for the parent, really. And
it's just kind of narcissism.
And Satan's like, yo, I was your first angel. I was the guy you made. Like, what the hell, bro? Mm-hmm. You made me first. Mm-hmm. I should be second in command. And then rightfully rebels against some bullshit nepotism.
Right.
And then gets sent down to hell. And he's like, well, I got to do something about this. And Beelzebub has a good idea. We should corrupt that world. Fuck that world, man. That world's whack. It's not as good as heaven.
Well, it's like, he's
making a new thing.
But think about it this way, too. So he creates a son of God to heap praise on him. And then he's like, fuck the angels in general. I'm just going to create a whole new world and just say, forget the rest of my creations.
That's a great point.
God is like perpetually a bored, petulant child who needs constant praise and attention.
He needs a new PS5 game every week.
That's right.
He's bored with shit.
He's bored with shit. It's like that Twilight Zone. You ever the Twilight Zone movie? And it's also there's an episode. No. Do you remember when it's like the kid who can just make things happen with
absolutely.
his mind?
Well, there's an excellent Treehouse of Horror about that too.
There is. Right.
And as we all know, whenever anything weird happens, what do we say? We're glad Bart did that.
Yeah. Right. But it is. It's like that. If you have an all-powerful, all-knowing being who how can anything be... I just don't understand how anything can be free will.
It can't be free will. And, like, his...
Well, that's why I don't know if Satan has free will. Does Satan really have free will?
I think the thing is Satan has free will, but the thing is God is so omnipotent that he's able to anticipate what Satan might do in a situation and counteract it. So he's like... Satan technically has free will, but God can manipulate situations to such an extent that he's able to, like, control what Satan does through Rube Goldberg machines.
Rude Goldberg.
You know, like
That's a good.
Satan's the ball, acting like the way physics would dictate that he would, based on the laws of creation. But
yeah, so here's a passage from the introduction. Critics usually paraphrase the last line. Oh, sorry. Foreseeing Adam and Eve's fall, God says, they themselves decreed their own revolt, not I. If I foreknew, foreknowledge had no influence on their fault, which has no less proof certain, unforeknown. Critics usually paraphrase that last line as if it were a simple expression of Milton's belief that the fall was foreknown but not foreordained. God no doubt intends such a statement, and he very nearly pulls it off in line 118. But then, in his eagerness to acquit himself, he asserts that the fall was bound to happen anyway, which is, quote, which had no less proved certain unforeknown. This is a false step because it concedes the very point that Milton's theodicy exists to deny. We have seen that Milton draws a distinction between certainty and necessity. The fall was always a certainty, since God foresaw it, but it was not necessitated by God's decree. If this argument is to the work, then certainty of future events must be rooted in nothing other than God's foreknowledge.
Man. Yeah, I think that's the hole in the needle that we have to thread here. It's like God, like, shit doesn't have to go down that fucked up, God, but just because you desire reverence and praise and love from people, but you have to command it, like, from them for it to be genuine in your eyes. You're just forcing people's hands all the time, whether it's through, like, dictates or whether it's through machinations,
punishment.
Or punishment, exactly.
Right, so you don't do what I want, I punish you.
Yeah.
If you don't praise me, but, like, you have free will.
Yeah. No, you do have free will. You have free will, but you're gonna go to hell if you don't love me truly, in your heart.
Which is, there's a couple of things here.
Okay, bro. Like, fuck
is,
you, man.
Does consent exist in this reality?
No. That is not a thing that exists.
Right.
Eve doesn't consent to her situation.
Well, and even Adam at one point, he's like, when he's first pissed off and he's getting ready to blame Eve, he's like calling out almost to God, like saying to himself, he's like, I didn't ask to be created and put it in this situation, right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to say is, like, this God really loves collective punishment.
Oh, sure does, man. Everybody's punished?
Yeah.
All descendants are punished? All snakes are punished?
Yeah.
Like,
what does the snake do?
The snake got possessed by Satan, bro.
Poor snake.
That snake wasn't complicit at all.
Here's that poor snake. He's just going along, eating his little mouse, and all of a sudden...
all of a sudden, he's, like, talking and hitting on this chick and whatnot.
He's like, and the snake is just, like, watching everything happen. He's like, it's not my fault.
I just wanted a snack.
But yeah, like, I mean, I was just, like, thinking about this. Well, then I was thinking about how like, one of the times that the Jews get punished, the Israelites get punished in the Bible is when God says, go commit genocide on these people and destroy them. And the Israelites are like, maybe we shouldn't commit genocide. And God punishes them and punishes the Israelites.
Wait, is that what's going on right now?
I mean,
was there a commandment that we weren't privy to because we're not Israelites?
In Gaza, like, you mean, or something?
Yeah, exactly.
But
they're doing it now.
But it's like, it's really interesting. Is like the God of the Torah, what Christians call the Old Testament, is not a God you want to live under.
No, he is a despot for sure.
He's a despot. I mean, you think about, like, yes, the Egyptians.
He fucks with Job for fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many times where he punishes people. What is it?
He's also homophobic as hell. He just, like, blows up Sodom and Gomorrah because they're, like, having gay sex and whatnot.
All kinds of stuff. Yeah, cities of sin and gambling, but again, it's like, well, you gave us free will, and that's the whole thing. Is like, how can you be angry if you know all this stuff is coming in the first...
Absolutely.
Most of the time when you are angry, you're angry because something was a surprise.
Absolutely.
Like, most of the times in my life when I'm angry is because why the fuck did that happen?
Yeah.
It's like, I can't believe that happened. But if you know in advance that something is coming...
That's your fault.
Or that it's your fault. Or even if it's not your fault and you know something in advance is coming, you're like... Well, there's no reason to be angry. I knew this was coming for ages.
Jesus storms down to Eden and, like, is just yelling at everybody, including the fucking snakes, for, like, this thing that his dad told him was going to happen in an earlier chapter. It's just like, y'all are so fucking irrational.
Yeah, so it's like, why... And then also...
Who would worship this God, is all I'm saying. Who would worship this God?
Milton...
Unless you're just, like, afraid and cowering and, like, you know, like, crying and snot's running down your nose. And you're like, please don't hurt me. Like...
And obviously neither of us are Christian.
No.
If that wasn't abundantly clear.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up Catholic. I went through all the sacraments, all the catechism.
I went to, like, 7 different types of church. Because, like, different members of my family were Christian and, like, different denominations. And they were all... relatively whack as far as I was concerned.
And I personally don't have a problem with the Christian faith or that it brings people joy and community and togetherness. Like, none of that stuff bothers me.
No, my best friend's Catholic and she loves the traditions and stuff like that, you know?
There's some really beautiful stuff about it. And I will say firsthand that, like, our Catholic community was a significant boon to our family. Like, they provided support in times when our family struggled and they continue to do so. Like, I mean, so there's a lot of beautiful things to be said. Mm-hmm. But, like, also, like, there was a point I reached in my late
makes
teens.
Good points, is what we're saying.
Right. There was a point I reached in my late teens that I was like, I cannot resolve the contradictions of the message of a God of infinite love mixed with the God who will punish you at the drop of the hat.
Floods the world at one point.
Destroys
it. Tells one guy.
Well, and in the end,
it's gonna happen.
And in the end, he destroys the world too in the Book of Revelation, right?
Right.
So it's like, this is a person who gets bored with his toys and then blows them up.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the God
I can relate to, but my toys weren't sentient, you know? I guess as far as
were they?
Maybe Toy Story's real, you know?
Maybe Toy Story's real.
Maybe Toy Story's real.
But I think there's some other really interesting things going on here with Milton specifically, who is completely opposed to monarchy. Yeah. Many of his political pamphlets are on the dangers and excesses of monarchy.
He's right.
And then he turns around and he, in a way, and there's elements of this that makes God out to be a little bit psychotic.
I would say God is absolutely God is a despot in this telling, yes.
Yeah, but then at the same time, and it makes me wonder.
Do you think at the end of this, Milton is like, and all of this future that I am telling you, Adam, you know, from the point of view of Michael or whatever, is good? Like, is this all good stuff? Because Adam is definitely made out to be a dum-dum.
He's not bright, no.
But at the end, he's like...
Eve is definitely the intellectually
Yeah,
superior.
at the end, hold on. My last quote is, Adam says, thank you. To obey is best. And I wrote after that, and I vomited. To obey is best. You're right, I should just obey. I don't have free will. That's what Adam takes away from this.
Yeah, but...
that he has to obey God, and then his life will be okay.
I think my real question is, Milton is writing this in the 17th century, in a time when going against church power could literally get you killed.
Absolutely.
So I can't help but wonder if he had written this in, say, the 19th century, where there was a little bit more freedom of expression.
Sure.
Would he have ended Paradise Lost the same?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the first, 10 chapters speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. You know? I think the last bit at the end where, where the angels are like, I
Is the last 2 chapters lip service?
I think it is. I think it is because they're like to be honest, they're unnecessary. Like
yeah, why
they're basically just like, guess what's gonna happen in the future, bro?
It's like
it's gonna be super bad.
Coming in this season of the Bible,
right? Yeah, you're not gonna be around for it, but this is all the shit that's gonna happen, and this will technically be Satan getting his comeuppance. Is it though? I don't think so. Like it's all fuck. I mean, yeah. It doesn't have anything to do with Adam except it like maybe puts his mind at rest. But Adam's mind is not. I don't think there's anything there. You know, like the one time he did something good, he regretted it immediately. Like the one time he's like he stands by his wife. He's like if Eve is gonna die or get punished, I'm gonna accept that fate too.
Yeah, so, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Stand by your partner.
And then they get fucking raked over the coals for it, you know? Mm-hmm. They get sent out into the harsh world. Now we, as people who have lived in the harsh world, are like, yeah, I think that's probably preferable to like living in this like garden where you're not allowed to do shit. Like you're not allowed to have lustful thoughts for your romantic partner. You're not allowed to like do anything but like toil. You know, and bend the earth to your will, whatever the fuck that means. And like, you know, there's nobody else there. It's just the two of them and some animals. And like, I think that would be a fun thing to experience for like maybe a day, but that's it. Like,
maybe a couple months of just peace and quiet. Give me a couple books.
You don't have books though, bro.
I know. And then what good books could there be in paradise?
Exactly.
All our books come from our struggle and strife.
Exactly.
All of our art comes from our struggle and strife.
All of art comes from struggle. Yeah. If there's no struggle, there's like, it's just like, the book is like, God is great. God loves you. You love God for sure. You know, like, cool. All right. Yeah. Good read, man.
It is also like he doesn't finish Paradise Lost until after he's blind. So my question is, what parts were dictated?
Yeah.
Like, right. Obviously, the quality of the poetry remains throughout the entire narrative, but does he change his approach because suddenly now there are people who outside of him who
they're
are
intermediaries.
They're intermediaries suddenly.
Yeah.
Right? It's like...
Once it becomes a collaboration... I do feel like the storytelling dips a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, like the last 2 chapters are...
They are the most boring.
They're boring because they're basically just Bible stories I already heard, mm-hmm. you know?
Yeah. Like, and the best chapters of Paradise Lost are when Satan is stirring shit up.
Yeah, or like the recount... Like, it's the stuff that Milton is making up, right? Mm-hmm. Like... the wars in heaven, you know, or the Council of the Damned.
What's his particular contribution to the biblical literature?
Exactly, and it's so good, you know?
And I didn't realize how much of Paradise Lost is, like, actually in our cultural consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even just, like during COVID, one of the things I watched was the Supernatural. And there are many references to like things from Milton that I was like, that's not in the Bible or any of the non-canonical text. Oh, that part was in Milton.
Yeah. Wait, how much of Supernatural did you watch during?
I watched the entire series. It took me 2 years though. It took me. I started.
Well, of course it took you 2 years. There's like. Wait, 15 times seasons. 22 episodes.
And they were like real seasons. They were not this.
No, they're 22
8 to 10 episode bullshit that we get nowadays.
No, that shit was on for fucking
And
ever.
there were many episodes that were just objectively bad.
Oh, yeah. Like,
but it was fun.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think there's so many things about this book is absolutely beautiful, but like I also think in some ways I just wanted a different ending. Like I remember like reading, I was about halfway through my rereading of this since high school, because I the only thing I actually really remembered from high school was talking about the creation of sin and death and then the Pandemonium Fortress and all that other stuff. And I was like, that was the most, and then the war in heaven.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, I didn't remember how the rest went. And then like, so the first half, I was so enthralled and I was like, this is like amazing. And then you get to the second half and when there's a lot of recounting of biblical narratives and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you start to get into like here's the actual fall and all that other stuff. I was less interested in that just because I know all that stuff so well.
Yeah.
And I kind of was like almost hoping that somehow Satan would kind of break free of his chains
Sure.
to some degree.
Yeah.
And I guess he kind of is in the end, because he then spends the rest of human history going in and corrupting, and all these demons are around.
Yeah, doing variations of what he did in the garden.
Right, corrupting and whispering into dreams and all that other stuff. But I guess I felt like his story just was never resolved. So then I wonder, it also makes me wonder what Paradise Regained is like. Because he writes a sequel, but
He does write a sequel, yeah.
But we also swore off sequels in this show.
We did swear off sequels in the show. I also suspect, given that these works are like, 350 years old, there's probably a reason that I just learned the other day about Paradise Regained.
Yeah.
I have a suspicion that it's probably a lot more like the last 2 chapters of this book than it is like the first, 8 chapters.
It's probably his telling of, I don't know, I guess we should look it up, but maybe it's his telling of the Book of Revelations or something.
Sure. Very possible.
But I definitely, I don't know, it's interesting.
I know it's much shorter. They had to pair it with the play Samson Agonistes or whatever, yeah.
So maybe it really wasn't as... I mean, it's obvious to me that this was like a decade or more of work. I mean,
absolutely.
I wrote like a poem that was like, it's like a dark fairy tale in the form of verse, and every other line rhymed was the structure, and that, I mean, that one was, oh gosh, it was like 1,400 words.
Sure.
That's one of these books.
Yeah.
It took me like a year.
I bet.
Like, because I would like get really in the flow of it, and then I'd be like, I don't really know how to make this all work and fit together, and then I'd like let it go for a couple of weeks, and then come back and try again, and I'd get like one more stanza, and then, but it was just like the toil over that. I cannot imagine writing what is now a 12-book thing, and some of these are like, it tells you the line numbers, right?
Yeah, they're mostly, every book is like around 900 lines.
Right. 900 to 1,000. There's some of they're definitely shorter, but like that's, 900 lines that's I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 words a piece, and like the references and the beauty, and it is just like this is artistry.
Extremely well crafted.
Extremely well crafted.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts?
No, I think that. Well, I probably have a lot of other thoughts, but I'm not sure if I would. They're all kind of half-formed thoughts, and I just feel like this is a really fascinating. I think it's a very angry book. I think that Milton was probably was coming from an angry place when he was writing this, and getting divorced from a 15-year-old, and
which was his first of 4 wives?
and then and like being part of a revolution that fails, and like all of those things, going blind, like probably really like,
and he blames his political pamphlet writing for going blind.
I know. He's probably feeling a lot of regret, a lot of anger that really comes through because he's pissed at God, obviously. God in this telling is a fucking asshole. But I think God in the original in the Torah is also a dick.
Yeah.
And I think
the loving God doesn't show up till Christianity.
I know, man. It doesn't show up until the fucking New Testament. And I like that God. I wish that God was real, to be honest. But or something like it. But
Jesus is a great, I have no problem with Jesus.
Jesus in this is kind of a dick too.
Jesus in this is a dick.
He's a prick. He's a little bootlicker, but
in like the actual New Testament stuff.
That could be because he's like just a deity at this point. He's not like down on earth experiencing the hardships and shit like that.
Yeah.
But I think that the reason that God is such a prick in the Old Testament too is because life was hard back then.
Well, yeah.
And life was toil and slavery and plagues and stuff like that.
You also have to think of if you are a true believer, whether you're Jewish or Christian or Muslim, actually, because
they all believe in the same.
They
God.
all believe in the same God,
Yeah.
and also Islam takes the Torah and the New Testament very seriously, and Jesus is one of the most mentioned people in the Quran.
Yeah.
So like these, this is the continuation of a tradition, but like you have to understand that like any mythological system is a product of the culture in which they live, and so the Torah is kind of a loose folkloric history of the Jewish people until it starts getting written down.
Yeah.
Because it's very likely that most of the Torah was like seasonal performances of the structure of Jewish history.
Sure.
Because you have to remember that most people throughout history are illiterate.
And oral tradition, man.
And so it's actually really interesting because if you look at the places in the world where they're benevolent gods, there are places like Egypt, many of their gods are benevolent. And natural disasters for them are kind of good things because the Nile regularly flooded every year. It was a predictable world to live in.
Yeah.
And the more chaotic the worlds, so if you look at like where the biggest asshole gods are, it's the Greeks. And if you look at ancient Greek culture, it was rife with conflict.
Yeah.
And so of course, what's happening here is like, I mean, you're also dealing like with the recent Reformation, the Counter-Reformation, you're dealing with like the rise of kings, the divisions of power between parliaments and kings.
Yeah.
Like so much is happening in the historical background of Milton, which is then reiterated when you're reading like the Jewish cultural history, which is a history of severe struggle and oppression.
Yeah.
Like the things that the Jewish people experience is they're like indigenous people who are enslaved by the Egyptians, who are enslaved by the Babylonians, who are enslaved by the Persians, who are enslaved by the Romans, and who's face constant anti-Semitism in Europe throughout history. I mean, one of the founders of American anthropology, Franz Boas, had to flee in like the 1890s from Germany because the anti-Semitism was so bad even then in 1890.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is a history of a people that experienced brutality and slavery over many generations.
Yeah.
And it's so important to put the biblical narratives into that context.
That's a great point.
Because, again, art comes from struggle.
Yeah.
And if, like, you read my horror fiction, it's not pretty or nice. Yeah. And, like, the creatures are not friendly, and bad things are happening, and there's oppression, and it's not a place you would want to live.
Sure.
And so it's like, why would we think that our mythological structures would reflect any different if we are a people of struggle?
That's a great point. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for today's episode.
Speaking of struggle.
Speaking of struggle, our next book is going to be Lovecraft Country.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a series of, you said, short stories?
Yeah, it's a series of short stories. They're all kind of interrelated. A lot of the protagonists are members of the same family, and it takes place in the early 1950s in America. And it's it's a family of black folk that live in the United States and experience horrors, and some of those are Lovecraftian, and some of those are just race politics in the 1950s, man.
Yeah, and it's an interesting. I haven't read it yet, but I did watch the first episode of the show Lovecraft Country, and it's just so interesting because if you guys don't know, probably you do if you're listening to this show, Lovecraft was a notorious racist.
Oh, so racist.
And some of his fiction is obviously deeply racially problematic and coded. Mm-hmm. Some of it is just good fun cosmic horror, but
all of it is born out of his anxieties and neuroses.
Sure.
But not all of those were racially motivated.
Right. So this book, I think, is trying to take those narratives of Lovecraft and turn them on their head. Is that
absolutely? And it's part of a tradition that's been going on for like several decades, where writers are recontextualizing Lovecraft's mythos and like centering like people of color or queer people in the mythos, which is not something that he ever did knowingly, although I think in some cases you can kind of read his protagonist as like queer in certain instances. But Yeah, like basically taking the mythos back for oppressed people, because what the Lovecraft mythos does exemplify really like perfectly is like living in a world that is definitely out to get you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if you think about what the early 20th century was like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, art is always a reflection of the time in which it's constructed and the culture in which it's constructed. So,
yeah.
So that's our next book. After that, we will be reading the Hugo Award-winning sci-fi novel Lord of Light by Zelazny. And Zelazny's most well known for Chronicles of Amber, but Lord of Light is about a bunch of people in the future who decide to take the forms of the Hindu deities and enslave and oppress populations on other planets.
Sounds like Stargate, man.
It's kind of like Stargate. Yeah.
Stargate rips, though. You know?
Yeah, it does. But I mean, it's one of my comfort shows,
sure,
despite many problematic things.
Oh man, I know. It's like, what if the military-industrial complex had like one wing that was cool?
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
what if the Air Force was chill and everybody else sucked?
Right.
That's definitely the context of that show, and I dig it.
Yeah.
Because I live in Colorado and we have the Air Force here.
Yep, and Cheyenne Mountains is right down the road.
Exactly.
Well, sort of.
Well, it's down the road.
50
for sure.
miles.
Yeah, 50 miles down the road.
Yeah. But in that story, also, one guy decides to take the form of the Buddha, and then try to lead a rebellion against this pantheon.
What a cool premise! I'm excited to read that one.
Yeah. So this will be my third time reading that one.
All right.
So, nice. But it's fantastic. And then we'll let you know when we have our next selection.
Yeah, I gotta pick something else now.
We gotta pick something else. So, and also, we might take suggestions at some point if people want to add comments.
I would actually appreciate suggestions.
Yeah, if you guys get suggestions for future books. Fiction is what we're focusing on.
Yeah. Yeah.
There might be a future at some point when we do some nonfiction, but fiction is kind of where we're sticking.
I think fiction really works so like nonfiction is great and very informative and stuff like that, but I feel like nonfiction is less open to interpretation.
Yeah.
And like clearly what we're doing here is trying to like find ways that we can do resistance in this, situation we all find ourselves in, and taking inspiration from fiction. So like in the case of Paradise Lost, one of the things we can do to, resist, I mean we could take Satan's, actions and kind of use them as inspiration. We can communicate with each other. We can do subtle actions that disrupt,
sneak in and corrupt
the system to work for our benefit, Kira, my wife, and I were talking today about so she's a professor and she was in a meeting and they were talking about what are ways that we can do climate change action, and a boomer was like, well, we can do things that we used to do back in the day, when everybody just decided that they wanted to stop littering. Literally a boomer said that people just took it upon themselves to remediate littering.
Wait.
But the thing is, that's not what happened. The government, the state government of Texas decided that litter on the highways was such a problem they had to do something about it. So they came up with a campaign that ended up being "Don't Tread on Me." They came up with a slogan and an ad campaign and fines, $1,000 fines in the 70s to remediate littering. So what we can do, if we want to affect the system and whisper into it and corrupt it to our ends, is we can go to meetings. We can protesting doesn't do shit. I'm sorry, you guys. Protesting looks cool.
Well,
and it feels...
permitted protesting.
Yes.
If you can shut down a city, if you can stop economic action,
that's what I'm talking about.
That's different.
You have to do protesting on a scale where you can stop ICE agents from like going into neighborhoods.
Exactly.
That's when protest matters. But like little protests on corners in like, you know, like the civic center, like the little town squares and shit like that. That's not going to do
like
nothing.
the people who sit every weekend at the Capitol building
Yeah.
with their signs every weekend for years.
Yeah, and don't do any like that. Doesn't they just like legislatures just ignore that? But what you can do is you can go to like meetings, like town hall meetings. You can go to like city council meetings. You can go to like HOA meetings. You can like go to meetings where people are deciding things actually and like change their minds.
Like the Denver Gay Revolt. Look it up.
Oh,
look
yes,
it up.
exactly.
This is when queer people stormed into a city council meeting and forced the Denver City Council to remove a lewd ordinance that was a justification for arresting queer people and throwing them in jail.
In their homes even.
In their homes by like, just like literally this is what they did, you guys.
Yeah.
They pulled up in a bus and they offered people Johnny Cash tickets. Johnny Cash tickets.
Hell yeah.
And they said, yeah, we'll take some Johnny Cash tickets. And that was enough for them to throw them in jail in the 1970s.
Fuck that shit.
So the queer community and their allies basically made the city council sit down and would not let them leave until they repealed it, and it was successful.
Yep.
And the point of our show here, of course, is to think about the different strategies and ways to resist and how fiction can spur us into ideas and action for successfully changing things for the better.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point, which is why when we say, like, if you have a book that's fiction that you can recommend, definitely let us know.
Absolutely. We want ideas.
We want ideas. Well, obviously, we're fine with taking turns picking if that's what needs. I have a whole long list of stuff we can read. He's got a library of books back here.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous of your library.
It's
thick
as hell.
But, you know, we have books. But if, like, you think that there is a book that we should really read because it has really good stuff in it, we want to know. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's it for our episode of Resistant Reads. We'll see you in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Sláinte, everybody.